Hello. Today's novel is truly captivating. Jerome is severely injured in an ambush, prompting Erica to swear revenge. She takes the captured attacker to a private interrogation room and employs various tools to extract information. However, the attacker is extremely stubborn and refuses to submit. In his final moments, he reveals that he was sent by the Werewolf Council before committing suicide. Erica is now plunged into confusion and anger, aware that a huge secret lies behind this. Upon waking up and hearing of Mabel's arrival, Jerome's attitude becomes complicated as well. What trials and tribulations will this couple face in the whirlpool of vengeance and emotions? Join me in discovering this novel filled with conflicting elements. Chapter 67, Erica. As we make our way back from our date, I find myself fidgeting nervously, my fingers intertwining and unraveling in an endless dance of uncertainty. The weight of the upcoming trip, just a week away, presses heavily on my mind. I can't help but wonder how Jerome will react when I tell him about it. Part of me doubts he'll want to come along, given the intensity of his recent training regimen. I glance at Jerome, admiring his strong profile as he drives. The past few weeks have been challenging for him, balancing his rigorous training with our relationship. Despite the demands on his time, he's been doing everything in his power to be there for me, and am incredibly grateful for his dedication. My heart swells with love and concern as I recall his unwavering courage during that harrowing incident not long ago. His protective instincts, now amplified by his awakened abilities, both comfort and worry me. While I'm thankful for his willingness to keep me safe, I can't bear the thought of him putting himself in harm's way for my sake. The memory of his feigned death still sends shivers down my spine, reminding me of the gut-wrenching pain I felt at the mere possibility of losing him. "What's the matter?" Jerome's gentle voice breaks through my reverie. "You've been standing over there for some minutes now." I turn to face him, my eyes lighting up with adoration as I meet his concerned gaze. My heart races, a mix of love and anxiety coursing through my veins. "It's nothing," I reply after a deep pause, still wrestling with how to broach the subject of the trip. Sensing my hesitation, Jerome offers a reassuring smile. "You don't have to worry, you can tell me whatever you want." His understanding nature only intensifies my guilt. I know he'd agree to accompany me without hesitation, but I don't want him to feel obligated or think him taking advantage of his devotion. As much as I long for his company on this journey, I'm torn between my desire to have him by my side and my wish for him to prioritize his own needs and training. I knew that if I told him late, it might look like I was taking advantage of him, and I didn't want that. I don't want him to feel like I'm taking advantage of him. I want him to feel free with me, and I shouldn't hide anything from him. It's all right. I will tell you now," I said with a pause while staring at him to be sure he was listening to me. And he was about to interrupt me when I placed my fingers on his lips and told him to be quiet. "I want to go on a trip next week with a pack, and I would like you to come with me," I said, and he chuckled while staring at me. "Is that what you wanted to say? You should know by now that it isn't a problem for me. I will follow you," he said, and I sighed heavily, knowing that what I wanted to avoid had finally happened. I knew that there was no way he would refuse to follow me, but to me, it seems like I'm being hard on him. It feels like I'm forcing him to follow me. I don't like that sound of things, but I knew that there was no way he was ever letting me go alone. "I'm glad you are going with me," I said with a fake smile, and he chuckled before turning to look at me. He stood in front of me. Hovering over me, the moon shone brightly, and I could see his eyes clearly. His eyeballs were shimmering with loads of emotions. I could feel my feet getting weaker every few seconds as I stared deeply into his eyes. His eyes were a deep blue like that of the ocean. He used his finger to place a strand of my hair beside my ear. I could feel my heart swell with so much emotion, and I could feel it thundering heavily against its cage every minute. I was in a daze, and it was like the whole world had stopped and vanished. It was like we were the only remnants on Earth. He brought his face closer to mine, and I closed my eyes in anticipation. I waited for his lips to meet mine, but what I wanted didn't happen. I opened my eyes with annoyance. and I saw him smiling at me. I was about to talk when I felt his lips on mine. I felt the anger in me disintegrate into nothingness, and I was filled with wants for him. I kissed him back almost immediately. Our tongues fought for dominance, and his hands roamed all over my body like a pro. He fondled my breasts, and he pinched my nipples. I have been trying to fight back the moan that wanted to escape my mouth because we are not in our room. I knew that anyone could catch us making out in public. I knew that I would feel embarrassed if someone were to see us. I tried hard to fight the moan, but he seemed to notice that, and he twisted my nipples hard enough to make me throw away the atom of shyness in me. I moaned out loud, not caring if anyone would hear or see us. I knew that something like that might happen, but I decided to worry about all that later. The moan that I let escape my mouth gave Jerome the opportunity to push his tongue into my mouth. He used his tongue to explore my mouth, and I felt great about the way he was handling me. We pulled away from the kiss after what seemed like minutes. That was intense, I said while trying to catch my breath, and Jerome chuckled with a mocking look on his face. "I'm such a good kisser, right?" Jerome asked with a raised eyebrow while staring at me intently, like he could read through me. "No, you aren't. You shouldn't be so full of yourself," I replied, and he chuckled heartily before replying, "You might want to confirm that again. We might go on another round of kissing, and I might not let you go anymore," he said with a creepy smile on his face, and I cringed back knowing that he would just like he had said. I knew that he only wanted me to say it to him, but I'm not ready to tell him. He knew that I had said it earlier, but he wanted me to admit it again, and I won't give him that satisfaction. "You won't dare try it," I said while glaring at him while trying to make it look like I was not intimidated. I knew that I might have no experience kissing since he was the only one I had ever kissed. He walked toward me with an intimidating look on his face, and I moved backward. "I will do that again, and there is only one way to make me stop, and that is if you admit that I'm a good kisser," he said, and I moved back uncomfortably. No one would be afraid. I'm an alpha if they are to see me moving back. I wouldn't have for once believed that I will have this kind of effect on me. I was shocked, but I knew that all this was possible due to our mutual bond. I keep walking back, but I am stopped by a hand that firmly holds my waist, and I know with no doubt that the hand belongs to Jerome. "Where do you think you are going, young lady?" I heard him say, and I rolled my eyes while staring at him with a sarcastic look on my face. "You go nowhere," he said, and he slammed his lips on mine. I responded to the kiss immediately, forgetting that I had been moving away from him earlier. Part of me wants to leave and scream at him while telling him he is such a bad kisser, but the other part of me wants us to stay like that. I soon ran out of breath, and I broke free from his grip while breathing heavily. He wanted to grab me again, and I knew with no doubt that he would give me no chance to catch my breath and he would kissing me. "Fine. You are such a great kisser," I said as I breathed heavily while moving backwards. "Wow, I was doing a great job," he replied with an arrogant look on his face. Chapter 68. "Otis, I called you all here to discuss a pressing issue," I said calmly while staring. "You all can remember the boy who won the duel." I started staring at them with a frown on my face. I knew that they would all have reasons to hate Jerome after I was done talking, and I knew with no doubt that they would all support me. "His name is Jerome. He is a threat to us and is an impending danger to our authority," I said calmly, and they all wore a confused look on their faces. I smiled inwardly, knowing that they would all be curious as to how dangerous he was. "How is he a threat to us?" one of the council members asked, and I glared at him with anger. I couldn't believe that he would dare to interrupt me without letting me finish my words. "If you all can remember what happened the last time we had an encounter at the duel, he made everyone present bow their heads to him. He made some of you submit to him. Do you think it's that easy?" I said calmly, with dangerous auras radiating around me. "I see no reason why he is a threat to us. He was put in an uncomfortable position, and if I were the one also, I would have done that. He did a great job out there, and there is nothing wrong with him," the same council member who had talked earlier said. Some of the council members nodded their heads in agreement, but they dared not say a word. I felt my anger rise. and I couldn't help but wonder what to do. I knew that things wouldn't be easy since he had council members siding with him. I knew that it looked like I was losing to him. He seems to have those who have got his back. I feel like all the things that I had been doing are going to go to waste. I believe strongly that it won't go to waste as long as I don't give up. I believe that if I keep being lenient toward him, then all the council members will be fond of him, and I don't want that. I want nothing other than to see him fail. I want him to die, and everything would be back to normal. He is a threat to us all. He will soon come for my throne. There is no way he would sit down as an alpha. He is an impending threat to us. Members of each pack aren't safe anymore. He would go about using his auras to make people submit to him, and you all won't be able to escape his wrath, I said, hoping that they would see things the way I do. You are wrong. You seem to be taking his matter harshly. You seem to have bore hatred for him. If this is what you want to talk about, then I'm out of here, he said again, and I groaned angrily. I couldn't believe that even without him trying to gain the Werewolf Council's trust, he already has it. It hurt me to know that things might not work out as I want them to. All that I had thought I had achieved in all these years would go to waste. Those that don't believe in what I said should leave, I said, and instantly 5 members stood up and left the place. I felt my anger rise to its peak, knowing that there was no way I would let him get to the other pack members. They left, and I glared at their retreating figure. Those that were left are those that were initiated by me, those that I have in my grasp. I knew that there was nothing there to say to them anymore. Meeting dismissed, I said, and I stood up angrily. I wore a straight face as I walked out of the Werewolf Council's meeting room. I walked into my office with dangerous auras radiating around me. I couldn't believe what was happening. How come others don't want to agree with me that Jerome is a threat to us? I knew that he had gotten through to them, and their hearts had softened for him. I knew that there was no way I would be able to get them to hate him. I knew that there was no way I would be able to change their mind. I walked into my office, and shortly there was a knock on the door. I sniffed in the air, and I knew that it was my beta. Come in, I said. What news do you bring me? I asked impatiently, knowing that there was no way he would come here empty-handed. I have found a perfect day to set the attack, he said, and I stood up with a questioning look on my face. Alpha Erica is going on a trip with him next week, and I will suggest that you attack him there. It would be sudden, and they won't be able to retaliate, he said, and I smiled happily, knowing that things would soon work out my way. He would be dead soon, and there would be nothing to stop me from getting what I want. I would kill him just like I had done to his father. He should have laid low in the pack I took him to instead of trying to cause trouble. I was willing to give him a second chance, but he threw that in my face. He would regret ever messing with him. I would make sure that he would regret ever coming to Eric as pack. He would regret not listening to his ex-fiancée. You can leave now. I will call you if I need to know anything, I said to him, and he bowed his head before leaving. I couldn't help but smile with satisfaction, knowing that there is no way he would be able to escape death with this. I would make sure I send my best warriors. But death, he has been looking for all this while I'll locate him. He would regret ever messing with me. Chapter 16. Scene Jerome. I woke up due to the sound of my annoying alarm, which rang through the whole room. I slammed it shut with my hand. I stretched my body with a frown on my face, and I couldn't help but wonder what it was like for me to set the alarm so early. A smile broke on my face as I remembered what was happening today. I would be going on a trip with Erica 4-Pack's business. I could remember the look on her face after knowing that I would be leaving the pack with her. It was like a dream come true, since I have always had dreams of what would happen today. I feel happy knowing that I will be going with her, and I couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if I had said I wouldn't follow her. I smiled happily as I stood up from my bed, and I used my finger to rub my eyes gently. I did my morning push-ups, and I stood up with sweat dripping down my body. My eyes were filled with nothing but happiness as I walked toward my bathroom with a towel over my head. I brushed my teeth, and I have my bath. I walked out of the bathroom with water dripping down my hair. I dried my body with my towel, and I put on my clothes after applying lotion to my body. I walked out of my room, and I headed toward Eric's room. I wanted to know if she was awake, and I knew with no doubt that she would have been awake by now. She had told me that we would be leaving early. I knocked on her door, and she ushered me in. She smiled immediately when she saw me. She walked up to me and placed a kiss on my lips. Our relationship had been utterly different since I had taken the lead by kissing her. She doesn't seem to care about anything. She had opened up to me in a way I hadn't before. She seems more free with me than before. We had improved with our greetings. We kissed each other more often. I was glad that things were starting to go as I wanted. "Good morning, Erica. How was your night?" I asked, staring at her with eyes glistening with so much emotion. My eyes were on her as I stared at her from head to toe. "It was great. It was great. And yours?" she asked, and I rolled my eyes sarcastically at her. "When are we leaving?" I asked, staring at her intently. It was like we should have been on our way now. There is nothing on my mind other than us on the trip. I couldn't help but wonder how the ride will be. I spent the whole night thinking about how our day would go. "We are leaving soon, and you are eager to go," she said. "Yes, I am. I can't wait to be on the chariot," I replied. "It will be great having you with me on the journey. I won't be bored, and I won't need to take Victoria with me," she said with a smile on her face. And I couldn't help but feel happy that I would be doing something great for my mate. I stared out of the chariot with a smile on my face. My face was beaming happily, knowing I was going on a trip with my friend. I couldn't help but smile as everything went into a blur. There was nothing on my mind other than my beautiful companion, who was beside me. "I need to get some things in my office. Mind coming with me?" she said while staring at me with raised eyebrows. She stared at me in a pleading manner. "Of course I will," I replied, and she squeaked silently as we walked to her office. We walked back to the chariot, where a few warriors were waiting for us. They would be following us with their horses, and some of them had taken their positions in front of the chariot. We entered the chariot, and soon we took off. I sat beside Erica, who was staring at the front as the horses raced forward. I could hear the horses' footsteps, and I couldn't help but think back. I could still remember the scenario where I was taken forcefully to Erica's pack. I can say it isn't something I want, and I was thrashing around the chariot where I was tied. The only thing on my mind was to escape from her and go back to Mabel. I could feel my heart throb with sadness at the thought of Mabel. I knew that I was being unfair to her by breaking her heart like that, and I knew with no doubt that I would have been more hurt if it turned out to be me. I knew that I wouldn't take it lightly with her, and I wonder how she is doing. I felt bad that I had led her to think that we would be together forever when we actually couldn't. "Jerome, are you all right?" I heard Erica's voice jolting me out of my thoughts, and I turned to stare at her. "I'm fine." I was thinking of what had happened. I couldn't believe a day like this would come, I said, and she chuckled with a smile on her face. "I also don't believe this would happen, but I'm glad it all turned out to be like this. I'm glad the moon goddess made me your mate," she said, placing her head on my shoulders. "It is a good thing that you didn't give up on me easily. I don't know what I would have done if I were you. I would have left without my friend, but I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you took me to your pack," I said truthfully. "Enough of the talks, let's enjoy the ride," I said, and she nodded her head in understanding. We were welcomed to their pack by their alpha, who seems to be fond of Erica and I. I was with them as they talked about the pack's business. They included me in their talks, and after a while, they were done. We both walked back to our chariot after we were done. I feel my heart beating rapidly and with fear. I knew that something was going to happen. Something dangerous is coming our way, and I can feel it. But I knew with no doubt that things wouldn't work out. I knew that something was going to happen on our way, and I wanted to know what it was. But I feel like there is no way for me to find out other than for it to happen. My body was starting to overreact as we made our way into the chariot, and Erica seems to be aware of it. "Jerome, are you all right?" she asked worriedly as she stared at me with a creased eyebrow, and I breathed heavily, not knowing what to do. "I'm fine, it's just that I'm having a weird feeling that things aren't right. I could feel some kind of weird feeling in my gut, and it's making me overreact," I said with a smile. trying to make everything look normal. "You don't have to worry, I'm with you," she said, and I smiled at her happily. I knew that was what she would say, and I knew that she might be worried that something was going to happen, but I knew for a fact that things wouldn't work out well. I don't want to feel worried about anything. I will make sure I protect her my whole life if something were to happen. I will make sure she does not get hurt, regardless of the situation. Chapter 70. Erica. I couldn't help but feel worried about what Jerome had said. I knew that I shouldn't feel worried, but I couldn't help myself. It was like something bad was going to happen. Like he had said. My hands were twitching vigorously. My eyes were filled with worry as I tried to hide the worried feeling I was having. I knew that it wouldn't be good if he continued to be worried like before. I knew that he wouldn't be happy about it. I snuggled up to him while whispering soothing words to him. I was starting to feel happy that nothing bad had happened so far. We were close to my pack already, and I had told the few warriors that were with us to be on high alert for an ambush. I knew that there was no way he would be lying to me, and I knew that he had smelt danger ahead of us. I was starting to let my guard down when I suddenly felt a change in the air. I knew immediately that something was going on. I knew that would change soon. I turned to look at Jerome, who had sat down appropriately, knowing something was different. He stared at me knowingly, and I knew with no doubt that something was going to happen. I could smell the hint of rogues in the place, and I knew that there were a lot of them. "There is an ambush," I said to the warriors through the mind link, and they all seemed to have noticed that. The person who was riding the chariot took off running. We had been moving slowly before, but since things turned out like this, he took off running. "I told you something was wrong," Jerome said with a fearful look on his face. I sighed heavily as I looked out of the chariot, and I could see the rogues that ambushed us. "You need to be calm, or else things will definitely go wrong. We need to assess the situation, you don't have to worry. We are close to my pack, and I have mind link the warriors," I said, staring at him, hoping he would be calm. I knew that it wouldn't be easy for him, and I knew with no doubt that things wouldn't go as planned. I should have known that something like this would happen since he was attacked a few weeks ago. I knew with no doubt that things would get shaky soon. "I'm not worried about myself, but they must be after me," he said, and I sighed heavily, not knowing what to say. I pushed Jerome out of the way as I heard the sound of an arrow approaching. I knew that the arrow was aimed at Jerome. The arrow penetrated the place where he was earlier. I turned to look at him again, and I saw that the place where he was sitting was cut open. He was on the floor, and I could feel the horse galloping each second. "Erica, get out of the chariot. He's been killed," I heard Jerome's voice, and I rushed out of the chariot, and almost immediately it crashed on a tree. "Are you all right?" I asked as I walked toward Jerome, not knowing what to say or do. He was on the ground with his hand bleeding. I knew he was in a lot of pain, and his hands weren't healing. "See who we have here. If not Luna and her weak mate," I heard a voice say, and I looked up to see a man staring at me with a smirk on his face. I could smell the scent of rogues, and I knew with no doubt that there were a lot of rogues. I knew that this was a staged ambush. I knew that whoever was after Jerome's life was after him for something that he was not aware of. "What do you want?" I asked, trying to keep my cool after he had called me Luna. I was angry with his words, but I tried to keep my calm, knowing that we were outnumbered. I knew that he was only trying to make me angry so that I would attack without thinking, but I knew better not to do so. I knew that he was trying to trap me, and then he would use me as bait to get Jerome killed. I turned to look at Jerome, who had stood up from the floor with bleeding hands. He stood beside me, and I had a frown on my face. "We want his life has been paid for, and we will stop at nothing but to kill him. You can leave unharmed, but your mate will be killed," the man said again, and all the rogues nodded their heads in affirmation. I felt my heart beat heavily as I stared around us. I could see the population of the rogues, and I knew we were outnumbered. I have tried mind linking the warriors that I came with, but there has been no reply from them. I knew that they must have been killed by the rogues. "You will have to go through me," I said, and I felt Jerome knuckle me from behind. So I turned to look at him. "You don't have to worry about me, you can leave. I will be fine." "Don't forget," Jerome whispered to me. And I sighed heavily, knowing that he would keep bugging me to leave here without me. "You won't be able to change my mind. My pack warriors would soon be here. We need to stall off some time for them to arrive." I whispered back to him, and I heard him groan with a frustrated look on his face. "Since you don't want to leave your weak mate alone, then you both must be ready to die," the man who seems to be their leader said, and I gulped down my saliva. I knew that the rogues should be nothing to us, but we were outnumbered. And not only that, Jerome doesn't have his Lycan's power. I knew that we might have a chance against them if he had his Lycan powers, but he doesn't. "You don't have to worry about me, I will be fine," I said to Jerome, and he chuckled. "I should be saying that to you," Jerome replied, and with that, we both went our separate ways. I have made up my mind to look out for Jerome. I would make sure he didn't get hurt. I will make sure that he stays alive until my warriors arrive. I knew that if my warriors were to arrive now, they would be gone within minutes. I knew that rogues aren't easy to take on, but they fight based on their animalistic instincts. I slid under the ground, escaping a punch, but I was hit by a kick. I groaned in pain, and I knew that there was no way for me to win against them and also protect Jerome in my human form without any weapon. I knew that I should have been aware that something was going to happen since Jerome had been attacked. I knew it was my mistake to go on this trip without weapons and also with a few warriors. I knew things would have been different if I had taken enough warriors with me. I knew this was my first time traveling with a few warriors and without a weapon, but I was attacked. I shifted into my wolf's form, shredding my clothes into pieces. I was ready to pounce on the rogues. Chapter 71, Erica. I cowled and helped but feel worried about what Jerome had said. I knew that I shouldn't feel worried, but I cowled and helped myself. It was like something bad was going to happen. Like he had said. My hands were twitching vigorously. My eyes were filled with worry as I tried to hide the worried feeling I was having. I knew that it wouldn't be good if he continued to be worried like before. I knew that he wouldn't be happy about it. I snuggled up to him while whispering soothing words to him. I was starting to feel happy that nothing bad had happened so far. We were close to my pack already, and I had told the few warriors that were with us to be on high alert for an ambush. I knew that there was no way he would be lying to me, and I knew that he had smelt danger ahead of us. I was starting to let my guard down when I suddenly felt a change in the air. I knew immediately that something was going on. I knew that would change soon. I turned to look at Jerome, who had sat down appropriately, knowing something was different. He stared at me knowingly, and I knew with no doubt that something was going to happen. I could smell the hint of rogues in the place, and I knew that there were a lot of them. "There is an ambush," I said to the warriors through the mind link, and they all seemed to have noticed that. The person who was riding the chariot took off running. We had been moving slowly before, but since things turned out like this, he took off running. "I told you something was wrong," Jerome said with a fearful look on his face. I sighed heavily as I looked at it, and I could see the rogues that ambushed us. "You need to be calm, or else things will definitely go wrong. We need to assess the situation, you don't have to worry. We are close to my pack, and I have mind linked to the warriors," I said, staring at him, hoping he would be calm. I knew that it wouldn't be easy for him, and I knew with no doubt that things wouldn't go as planned. I should have known that something like this would happen since he was attacked a few weeks ago. I knew with no doubt that things would get shaky soon. "I'm not worried about myself, but they must be after me," he said, and I sighed heavily, not knowing what to say. I pushed Jerome out of the way as I heard the sound of an arrow approaching. I knew that the arrow was aimed at Jerome. The arrow penetrated the place where he was earlier. I turned to look at him again, and I saw that the place where he was sitting was cut open. He was on the floor, and I could feel the horse galloping each second. "Erica, get out of the chariot. He has been killed," I heard Jerome's voice, and I rushed out of the chariot, and almost immediately it crashed on a tree. "Are you all right?" I asked as I walked toward Jerome, not knowing what to say or do. He was on the ground with his hand bleeding. I knew he was in a lot of pain, and his hands weren't healing. See who we have here. If not Luna and her weak mate, I heard a voice say, and I looked up to see a man staring at me with a smirk on his face. I could smell the scent of rogues, and I knew with no doubt that there were a lot of rogues. I knew that this was a staged ambush. I knew that whoever was after Jerome's life was after him for something that he was not aware of. What do you want? I asked, trying to keep my cool after he had called me Luna. I was angry with his words, but I tried to keep my calm, knowing that we were outnumbered. I knew that he was only trying to make me angry so that I would attack without thinking, but I knew better not to do so. I knew that he was trying to trap me, and then he would use me as bait to get Jerome killed. I turned to look at Jerome, who had stood up from the floor with bleeding hands. He stood beside me, and I had a frown on my face. We want his life has been paid for, and we will stop at nothing but to kill him. You can leave unharmed, but your mate will be killed, the man said again, and all the rogues nodded their heads in affirmation. I felt my heart beat heavily as I stared around us. I could see the population of the rogues, and I knew we were outnumbered. I have tried linking the warriors that I came with, but there has been no reply from them. I knew that they must have been killed by the rogues. You will have to go through me, I said, and I felt Jerome knuckle me from behind, so I turned to look at him. You don't have to worry about me, you can leave. I will be fine. Don't forget Emma, Jerome whispered to me, and I sighed heavily, knowing that he would keep bugging me to leave here without me. He won't be able to change my mind. My pack warriors would soon be here. We need to stall off some time for them to arrive. I whispered back to him, and I heard him groan with a frustrated look on his face. Since you don't want to leave your weak mate alone, then you both must be ready to die, the man who seems to be their leader said, and I gulped down my saliva. I knew that the rogues should be nothing to us, but we were outnumbered, and not only that, Jerome doesn't have his Lycan's power. I knew that we might have a chance against them as Lycan powers, but he doesn't. You don't have to worry about me, I will be fine, I said to Jerome, and he chuckled. I should be saying that to you, Jerome replied, and with that, we both went our separate ways. I have made up my mind to look out for Jerome. I would make sure he didn't get hurt. I will make sure that he stays alive until my warriors arrive. I knew that if my warriors were to arrive now, they would be gone within minutes. I knew that rogues aren't easy to take on, but they fight based on their animalistic instincts. I slid under the ground, escaping a punch, but I was hit by a kick. I groaned in pain, and I knew that there was no way for me to win against them and also protect Jerome in my human form without any weapon. I knew that I should have been aware that something was going to happen since Jerome had been attacked. I knew it was my mistake to go on this trip without weapons and also with a few warriors. I knew things would have been different if I had taken enough warriors with me. I knew this was my first time traveling with a few warriors and without a weapon, but I was attacked. I shifted into my wolf's form, shredding my clothes into pieces. I was ready to pounce on the rogues. Chapter 70 to Erica. I rode a horse quickly toward my pack with my mind being fuzzy. There was nothing on my mind other than to get Jerome to the infirmary for treatment. I felt anger boiling in me, and it was directed toward those who attacked us. I will make sure I get to the root of everything. I will make them pay for hurting Jerome. I would make sure that none of them got away. My eyes were filled with unshed tears, which I was trying my best to hold in. I tightened my hand over the rope that was attached to the mouth of the horse while using the whip that was in my hand to whip the horse's back, urging it to run faster. Jerome, stay with me, I said, slapping his cheek to keep him awake as I rode the horse quickly. But he didn't wake up. I felt my heart ache, knowing that what I feared most might happen. Tears were streaming down my face as I stared at his pale figure, which was sitting unconsciously in front of me. I felt my heart hurt as I stared at him, and I couldn't help but feel hurt and sad that he was responsible for this. All this wouldn't have happened in the first place if I hadn't told him about the trip I'm about to embark on. I feel my eyes getting more moist, and I feel the tears in my eyes blocking my view. I blinked away the tears that were in my eyes, and I sighed heavily with sadness in my eyes. I feel bad that I was the cause of all this. All this wouldn't have happened if I hadn't told him to come with me. And it would have been avoided if I had taken weapons with me on our way, and also if I had allowed the warriors to follow me. I feel bad about everything, and I keep whispering about how sorry I am to his ears. I almost collided with a tree, but I was able to dodge it on time. And after what seemed like hours to me, I could feel myself getting closer to my pack. Soon I arrived at the pack, and I carried Jerome, who was lying lifelessly on the horse with blood dripping down his body. I had a worried look on my face as I rushed him into the infirmary and carried him into a private ward that was the end of the infirmary. I had informed the head doctor to meet me at the infirmary. I had cleaned up the tears that had streamed down my face, but my eyes were still red from crying. "Good evening, Alpha," I heard the voice of the head doctor. "Get to work, anything must tend to happen to him," I said with a stern look on my face. I walked out of the ward immediately, knowing that there was no way I would be able to stand in the ward as the doctor operated on him. My eyes were filled with anger toward those who were responsible for this, and I knew that the only way to get things done was to find out who was responsible. I would make the person suffer my wrath, and he or she would pay for what had happened. I will repay the person 1,000 folds. I will make sure he regrets everything he did to Jerome and me. I will make the person pay with his blood. I made my way toward the prison after I mined, linked the warriors who came to the place to know if they had arrived yet. I told them to take the rogue who was caught to the torture room. I told them to take him to my private torture room, which has never been used by me before. I had created the torture room for those who wouldn't confess to their sins, and it contained various tortuous weapons that would make one confess to what one had done. It will make one spill the secret that has been kept. There will be no way that the rogue will fail to say who sent them. I have always wanted to try out my tools since I added some things to them recently. I felt like this would be the right time to test things out, and I knew that the tools would never fail me. I will make sure that I direct my anger at the individual who is responsible for what he has done. I walked into my private torture room, and I saw the rogue, who was tied down to a chair. There was nothing on my head other than the scene of me carrying Jerome into the infirmary. "You should leave," I said to the warrior who had brought the rogue into the torture room. "What do you want with me?" The rogue asked weakly. Blood was dripping down his hands, which were refusing to heal quickly. "You aren't supposed to ask me any questions, but I will answer you. You are here to be tortured," I said to him while staring at him menacingly. "Who sent you?" I asked while staring at the rogue, who chuckled weakly at my question. "You won't answer. I have been trying to be lenient towards you. You will regret not telling me soon," I said, and with that, I took out a knife from the racks of tools in the room, and while doing that, I made sure that there was noise coming from the other tools that were in the room. I walked toward him and stabbed the knife into his legs, and he screamed out in pain. I looked at his eyes, and he still had the resisting look on his face. I knew that he wouldn't be replying to me anytime soon, and I would have to keep doing what I love most. I walked toward the direction of the tool, and I took out a hammer and chisel. I walked toward the rogues, and I used the hammer to hit the knife, pushing it deeper into the leg of the rogue, who screamed out in pain again. Blood was dripping down his legs, and blood had spilled all over my face, but I didn't care. All I wanted at that moment was for the rogue to confess, but he wasn't ready to. I grabbed the chisel that was lying on the ground and used it to create a hole beside the knife with the help of the hammer. My eyes were filled with anger that the pleas and cries of the rogues fell on deaf ears. "I'm ready to confess," I heard him say, and I stopped what I was about to do next. I was going to twist the knife that was still buried in the legs of the rogues. I was sent by, "Go fuck yourself, bitch," I heard him say, and I felt my anger rise to its peak. I grabbed the knife and twisted it immediately. The man shrieked with pain, and I removed the knife from his legs. I stabbed the rogue's leg continuously, and soon his whole leg was filled with blood. The rogue was still not replying, and that made me even angrier. I stabbed the rogue in his neck with so much force, not caring if he would die. I was about to grab the knife from his neck, but I was stopped by him. I will tell you who it was. He screamed with all his might while breathing heavily. Well. Start taking. I demanded. It was one of the werewolf councils. He stated as he breathed heavily, and I felt my heart stop beating. Who is it? I asked, and he smiled at me. You will have to find out for yourself, I heard him say, and I was about to torture him with the knife in his hands when he moved back with so much force that the knife ended up cutting his neck. Chapter 73. Mabel. I have been moody for the past few days, and that was because of the threat I received from Alpha Otis, the head of the Werewolf Council. I knew that there was no way that I would be able to get things back to normal. I signed a deal with the devil incarnate, and I knew that soon my life would change from good to bad. I knew that things wouldn't have been this bad if I had stayed here and not tried to watch Jerome fail while trying to be with his mate. I feel like soon I will be given a huge assignment by the council, and I know that there is no way I will be able to escape that since he has a lot of connections. Here I am in my room, sitting down on my bed, lost in thoughts with my eyes wide open. I wasn't aware of my surroundings until I heard a whiff of air heading into my room, and I knew with no doubt that it was the lunatic head of the council who had sent a letter through the arrow again. The arrow impaled itself on the wall, and I felt my legs start itching. I knew that it was because I was nervous. I walked toward the arrow, which had a letter attached to it, and I took the letter with shaky hands, not knowing what to do or say. My face was furrowed while trying to figure out a way out of all this, but it seems there is no way I would be able to escape from the hands of controlling head of the council. I have tried thinking of a way to not listen to him, but there is no way that could be done. I'm just an Omega who everyone takes advantage of. They all take me for a coward, and they do as they want with me. I knew that the life of a commoner like me wasn't worth a thing. They would use and discard me just like Jerome had done. It was late before I realized that he had taken advantage of me and used me the way he wanted. He knew he was a strong breed of werewolf, but he kept quiet about it for years, and he used it to make everyone submit to him. But there is no way I'm letting him use me again. He has done enough for me, and I will make him pay for it if I get a chance. I knew there was no way I would be able to get my revenge on him, and I pray that the head of the Werewolf Council wants Jerome dead. Then I will gladly do that. There will be no resistance in my way, and I will do everything exactly as I want, and no one will question me about it. I knew that with the help of the leader of the Werewolf Council, I would go unnoticed by anybody, and I wished a time like that would come. I opened the letter with shaky hands, and my eyes caught a solid-looking substance that was wrapped in paper. I knew that there was no way I would know what the substance was being used for until I read the letter. My hands were shaky as I tried hard to hold the paper out to read. My eye wound up with shock, not knowing what to do. It turned out that the head of the council wanted to make my wish come true. I knew I should be happy about that, but I'm not. I'm sad that this will be the end of Jerome. I knew that I had prayed and wished for this earlier, but that was only within my reach. Alpha Otis had ordered me to go to Eric as Pack with the aim of killing Jerome. It was said that the substance in the paper was a dangerous one that can kill within 12 hours, and its remedy is rare. He told me that this was my opportunity to get my revenge. He threatened to kill my parents if I refused to do as he had said, and he said I should make all this money go to no one. I felt my legs get weak, and I fell down on the floor with a panicked look on my face. My eyes were filled with nothing but sadness after knowing that my parents might be killed because of me. I wouldn't let anything happen to them, and instead I will carry out what they wanted me to do. I will make sure that my parents don't die. I will make sure they live if it causes me to be a murderer. I knew that this was also an opportunity for me to get revenge on Jerome, but I don't want to, and I have no choice but to do it. The head of the Werewolf Council put me up to this, and he had me in a tight spot. I sighed heavily, knowing that it would be better if I went and got things ready. I knew that I would need to dispose of all these letters for me not to get caught, and I will do just that secretly. I knew that could only be done at night, but that doesn't mean I should be reckless with it. I knew that my being reckless with it would cause everything that was hidden to be open, and I wouldn't want that. I hid the things under my bed with the intention of throwing them back when I woke up in the morning. I was nervous about the whole thing while being confused about who to choose. I knew that if I were to choose to help Jerome, I would be in a lot of trouble because my parents would die. I don't want to lose my parents over Jerome, who doesn't seem to care about me, and he thinks that I'm something he can use and discharge. I knew that if it were to be before, then it would have been difficult for me to choose Jerome over my parents. I knew that would be childish of me since he was only using me, and I'm glad I'm back to normal. I walked out of my room with the intention of busting the alpha. I was going to tell him about everything because I don't want something weird to happen. I knew that it might seem easy for me to say that I would be killing Jerome rather than myself to get it done. I want the alpha to give me permission to leave the pack. I don't want a situation where I would sneak out and get into trouble, thereby causing harm. One thing I have always learned is that no matter what I'm about to do, I need to contact the alpha to inform him of it. I don't want to go out and cause trouble outside. I knew that what I was going to do was something dangerous, and I needed to have permission to do anything before going ahead with the plan. I knew that I might relay Alpha Otis for his protection, and then he would betray me. Chapter 74. Erica. It came as a shock to me that the Werewolf Council was involved, and I knew with no doubt that there is no way anyone would believe that. But I knew more than anyone that I can't trust anyone completely. I knew that my trust might get shattered overnight, and I decided to keep my findings secret. I knew that I didn't want to alert the culprit that I had a piece of information and would serve as bait to catch the culprit. I held and wrapped my head around what had happened, but I knew that the rogue's death would also help with everything. I will make sure that only Jerome and my beta know about my findings. I knew that if it got to the ears of the others, we might not be able to catch the culprit. I need you to dispose of the body of the rogue, I said as I linked a pack warrior to dispose of his body. I walked out of the place with blood all over my face. It all belonged to the deceased rogue. My face was stone cold, and I was a bit relieved from the stress of Jerome being in the hospital. My gaze hardened as I made my way toward my room. The thought of Jerome being in the hospital doesn't sit well with me, but there's nothing I can do about it. I walked into my bathroom and tore off the clothes I was wearing, not having it in mind to wear them again. I knew that if I kept wearing the clothes, they would keep reminding me of the incident that happened today. I sighed heavily as I let the water hit my skin softly, and after a while I took my sponge and scrubbed some soap on it. I scrubbed my body using the sponge. I sighed softly as I relaxed under the shower while trying to keep myself calm. I knew that my parents would have been waiting for me to give them feedback on what had happened, and I will tell them exactly what they need to know. They should know that a council is involved, and I know that my parents will find ways to sort things out with me. They would help me with everything I need to do. I walked out of the bathroom with a towel tied around my waist. My eyes were furrowed while thinking of Jerome's condition. I wore my clothes, and I headed toward the place where my parents had told me to meet them. I walked in immediately, and I saw all of them gathered in the room. They all turned to look at me with a pitiful look on their faces, which I deem unnecessary. I groaned with a hint of anger, as I cowled and scanned the pitiful look in their eyes. "Are you all right?" my mom asked, and I fumbled with the tip of my lips. "As you can see, I'm fine, let's just get straight to the point. Is this the reason you requested a meeting at the inn?" I said arrogantly, not meaning my words, but what had happened made me act like that. I feel bad about the tone I used when I was talking to her, but I'm not in the right state of mind, and my parents seem to understand. And the same goes for my beta. The inn is made for private issues that we don't want anyone hearing about, or prying into the inn is somewhere private that only the beta and alpha know about. The inn isn't somewhere known to everyone, and its building can't be seen by anybody since it was built under the ground like a dungeon. There was a room that could be used to access the room, but the room was hidden behind a cupboard that had weird writing on its wall. One would have to do everything required for everything to open up, and it wasn't noticeable to anyone since the cupboard had books that were arranged in it. "Let's get straight to the point. I would like to know more about all that has happened," my dad said, and I nodded my head, knowing I had no choice other than to tell them all that had happened. Jerome was attacked some weeks ago by some rogues, and I was there to save him from the hands of the rogues. I didn't take that seriously, and I forgot about planning for what could happen. I did think that nothing would happen to him or that we would be attacked. I explained with a pause as I stared at them, wanting to be sure I had their undivided attention. I had tortured the rogue who was caught by me, and it turned out that he was sent by a member of the Council of the Werewolf, and the rogue killed himself without telling me the full details. I said, and I could see their eyes morph into those of a shocked person. This is more serious than I thought. I have thought we are only after a pack of rogues who are after him, but it seems I was wrong, Samuel exclaimed, and I rolled my eyes. There is something more to it than you think. The person after Jerome knows about his powers. The person isn't after him because of you. The person wanted to hunt him down. There seems to be something between the two, my dad said first time after I arrived. I nodded my head, knowing that what he was saying was true. Are you trying to say that there is a connection between the both of them? My mom asked, and my dad nodded his head. The person is a member of the council, and that fact implies that whoever acted out of line when the duel was still going on must be the one, my dad added, and I couldn't help but think of who had acted out of line, and the person that came to my mind is Alpha Otis. I have someone I suspect, I said to them, and they stared at me curiously. The person I suspected is Alpha Otis. He seems to be working with Alpha Rider, I was saying, but I was cut short by a voice that rang into my head in a joyful state. Alpha, your mate is awake, and he requests for you. I heard the voice of the doctor who was attending to Jerome through the mind link. I felt my heart leap with joy that instant, and a smile broke on my face. I couldn't believe that such good news still exists. My eyes were filled with joy, and my parents stared at me with a questioning look plastered on their faces. My mate is awake, and I need to be by his side, I said to them, and I walked out of the inn, forgetting that I was in the middle of a meeting. I made my way toward his room with a small smile curving at the end of my lips, and I walked into his room to see him wide awake. He was staring at the ceiling, and I moved toward him with a smile on my face. I feel happy knowing that HE's back, and I couldn't contain my happiness. How are you doing? I asked him with a bright smile as I took my seat on the bed. I'm getting better, thanks to someone, he said, and I chuckled. It isn't funny the way you acted out there. Are you planning to get yourself killed? You should have let me handle them. I don't like seeing you hurt like this, I said, but I was interrupted by a mind link. A lady has been caught at the pack border with the name Mabel Temptress. She said she would be let in, the voice of the head of the guards at the border said, and I felt my heart freeze not knowing what was going on. Chapter 75. Erica, why is she here? I asked with a cold and angry look on my face. What's wrong? I looked at Jeremy, who jerked up from his bed as my loud voice alerted him. I looked at him with a puppet-like look as he glared at me with a cold look on his face. Who is here? Jerome asked, and I sighed heavily, not wanting to reveal to him that Mabel is here. I hope I didn't disturb you, I said, hoping that would be enough to make him forget about what I had said. I had planned on sending her away before he interrupted me, and I knew that this wouldn't have happened if I had kept my mouth shut. What's the cause of your exclamation? He asked, looking at me with a worried and concerned look. If there's one thing I love about him, it's the love and care he always shows me. I want to be with him for all of eternity. I was informed that Mabel is at the pack border, I said, and he looked at me with a shocked expression. He groaned out in pain as he tried to get up from the bed, showing how angry he was. Please be careful, I said as I quickly supported him and lay him back on the bed. I smiled inwardly, knowing that he didn't want to see her. With his current expression and mood, I could tell that he wasn't happy to hear about her arrival. I don't know why, but I feel happy and delighted that he doesn't want her again. What's wrong? I asked, pretending not to know. He looked for a while before clearing his throat. What's happened? He asked, and I looked at him with a confused look. Where is she? He asked again, and I soughed inwardly. She's at pack border, of course, I said, and he looked at me with a cold look. Why is she at the pack border by now? He asked, and I stared at him with a furrowed gaze. What do you mean? I asked, somehow feeling angered by his words. She should have let me in, he said, and I looked at him with a cold look. Why should she be let into the pack anyhow? What do you mean? Why can't she be allowed to join the pack? He asked, trying to sound cool even though it was obvious that he was already angry. Why is he angry? Is he angry because of her? I asked myself that question, but I cowled and get an answer to it. Thinking of her, I changed my attitude toward him. Yes, she shouldn't be let into the pack because she's an outsider. I blunted. She's not an outsider, he said with a cold look on his face. I wonder why he was angry when I brought up Mabel's conversation. I think something is wrong. Why isn't she? You broke up with her? Right, I asked, and he nodded his head with a stern look on his face. Yes, he responded. What is she to you? Do you still have feelings for her? I asked, and he looked at me with a surprised look. It's obvious that my question caught him off guard. Why are you asking? He asked. Because I wonder why you're working yourself up, because she was kept waiting at the pack border. I said, and he looked away with a sigh. What is she to you? I asked again. This time he groaned out with a frustrated look on his face. She's my girl, he said, stopping mid-sentence as he realized what he was about to say. What do you mean? She's your what? I asked with a cold and angry tone in my voice. She's nothing to me. Okay, you can send her if you want, I don't care, he said, and made her go to sleep. I pulled him gently back to my chest. I'm sorry. Please don't be annoyed. I don't want you to be in pain, I said, and he nodded his head gently. I should go and meet her, he asked as he tried to get up. I pulled him back gently, considering his health. I wouldn't want anything to happen to him. I knew that this wasn't a good thing since he was hurt in my place, and letting him go will only endanger his life. I would have let you go, but I can't see you this way. I would go myself, don't worry about it, I said, and he nodded his head gently. Please try to be nice with her, he said, and I glared at him coldly. I replaced my expression with a smirk as a crazy idea popped into my head. Okay, I would. Bye, I said as I planted a soft kiss on his forehead. I jerked up from the bed and adjusted my clothes properly. I made my way toward the door. I pushed the door open as I twisted the knob. I made my way toward the pack's border with a frown on my face, wanting to know what would happen next. I can't believe that he would want to hurt himself because of Mabel. It hurt me to know that he still had lingering feelings for her, and I have made up my mind to find out why she was here and what she wants. I ignored the greetings of the pack warriors, and I made my way toward Mabel with an uninterested look on my face. Follow me, I said authoritatively, and she stared at me for a while before following me. I knew that I didn't want to say anything in front of the pack warriors, and as soon as we were far away from the hearings of the pack members, I struck up the conversation. Why are you here? I asked while glaring murderously at her. I came here since I heard that Jerome was attacked and he got seriously injured, she replied, and I scoffed with a frown on my face. You think I will believe that? Why are you here? I questioned her again with a serious look on my face while releasing my auras. She bowed her head involuntarily while trying to resist the force, but she had no way to resist it since she was an Omega. So she finally gave in. She bowed her head, and after a while, I stopped releasing my aura. I came here to stay for some days to take care of him. I was worried about him, she said innocently, and I cowled and helped but feel like there was something she was hiding. I knew that her innocent look wasn't enough to fool me, but I knew that I had to let that slide, and I would do everything in my power to make sure that she didn't finish whatever she came here to do. I have my eyes on you, and don't you dare try to misbehave with him, I said with a threatening look on my face, and I showed her my claws before retracting them. I walked in the direction of the infirmary, and I stopped suddenly, causing her to halt. I turned to look at her while staring at her from head to toe. I can feel that something is different, but I can't place my hands on what is going on. How long do you intend on staying? I asked, eyeing her. I don't know why, but I feel worried that Jerome would be with someone like her. I knew that there was no way her intentions were clean. She had said she wanted to take care of him, and I doubt if that was her real intention. I feel like there is no way she would want to help Jerome recover as quickly as he can since he has already hurt her. "I will stay for 2 days," she said, and I sighed heavily, knowing that I would have to find a place for her to sleep. "I will prepare a room for you, where you will stay," I said with a frown on my face, knowing that someone like her isn't to be trusted. "They are said to be green snakes under the green grass. You shouldn't misbehave," I said to her as I opened the door at his ward, and a gasp escaped her mouth as she saw him lying on the bed with bandages on his body. She rushed toward him with a worried look on her face. She seems to be genuinely concerned about him, but I knew not to believe what I saw. "Jerome, how are you doing?" Mabel asked, and I glared at her secretly, then walked to sit down beside Jerome.